So in today's video I'm going to be comparing the DJI Osmo Nano with the DJI Osmo Action 6. Now both of these action cameras perform really well on their own, and I've compared them against many other action cameras which I own. So that Nano really does a good job versus the Action 5 Pro, and also the Action 6 does a real good job when comparing against the Action 5 Pro. So it's time to compare the Nano versus the 6. Now when I compared that Nano against the 5 Pro, if I didn't tell you which camera it were underneath in text, in some clips you'd never know. So I'm hoping that's going to be the same today with the 6 versus the Nano. In some clips, really see if you can not look at the bottom of the screen. In fact, I'll not put the wording underneath which camera it is in some clips, and I bet I can catch you out because that Nano's that good. Now on paper the Action 6 has two major differences over the Nano. We've got a variable aperture on the Action 6 as well as a larger square 1/1.1 inch sensor versus that traditional 1/1.3 sensor in the Nano. But on a bright lit sunny day like today, you're not really going to see the differences, only in some shaded areas with that larger inch sensor. And then the audio quality out of both cameras is really good too, so halfway around I'll stop and do a side-by-side comparison inbuilt audio test. And then also keep an eye on the overall stability of the picture, the overall clarity of the picture when I split that screen on both cameras. Right, so now I'm going to start comparing differences in the town just behind me with the Nano versus the Action 6. Here we go. So I'm talking to the Nano right now, and what I forgot to tell you there is both cameras are going to be left in automatic mode, although on the Action 6 I'm going to set that variable aperture to 2.8, the traditional f-stop, which is on the Nano, because I want that fairest comparison possible whilst in automatic mode. Right, so first of all let's do this panoramic sweep of this valley, and then I'll split that screen with the Nano versus the Action 6 to see which one really performs the best here. And once again, keep an eye on that dynamic range on both cameras when it's pointing into the sun. And whilst both cameras are facing towards me, once again keep an eye on that overall dynamic range and in them shaded areas as well. And like I said, we've got that larger inch sensor on the Action 6, so any shaded areas on paper should stand out more than that Nano. And now I'm walking in a heavily shaded area. As you can see, the blue sky in the distance, it's really sunny over there. So I want to split the screen, which one's performing the best in this heavily shaded area. Again, on the Action 6, the larger sensor there than the Nanos, I should say that should be looking the best. And whilst both cameras are facing towards me, just do a little audio test here. There's no wind at all around me. We've got a lot of heavy traffic to the right. So as I split this screen now, we're going to listen to, first of all, the Action 6, and that's what you've just been listening to. And now I'm switching over to the Nano. With those heavy traffic at the right there, still coming at the same pace as I was just talking to the 6. So which one's sounding the clearest there? And one more to keep an eye on today is the level horizon. Now, both cameras have been calibrated at home on a level surface, and they're both on the latest firmware updates. So there shouldn't be any screen wobble, but I've noticed with these action cameras, especially when it started out from the DJI Osmo Action 4 right through to the 6 and the Nano there, the footage can tend to sway. So if it does, I'm leaving it in today, because on that side-by-side comparison, to rectify that you've got to zoom in, level it out, and then you get a diagonal mark in your split screen. So I'm just going to completely leave it in. So if one, let's say the Nano is completely cockeyed, let's say, but the 6 is straight, I'm leaving it in because I really need you to see that. So as I'm walking through this park, let's do an inbuilt audio test to the rear of the cameras. So at the moment you're listening to the Nano, and now I've switched over to the Action 6. It's at arm's length, I'm talking at the same tempo. So which one sounds the clearest? The Action 6 or the Nano? And now I'm just walking across this pavement into this town, and like I said earlier, really keep an eye if either of the camera's screens are swaying there. Like I said, if they are, I'm not rectifying it, I'm leaving them in for you. And once again, I'm in the shaded area as the sun's that low on the horizon. If there's any buildings or edges either side of me, I'm in a heavily shaded area this time of year. I'm going to keep saying this a lot today, but which one's looking the best? And now looking at back of both screens, they really are performing what looks to be the same, but once again I'm on these compressed screens looking at the back, but they do look fairly similar, to be fair, on this shot. Different type of shot now. The sun's just to the right of me, and once again facing out into the bright there. They do look very similar. Just keep an eye on the saturation on the red phone box there. I'm not really going to say which one looks the best, I'll leave that for you, but I can clearly see a winner here. It's been an interesting one. I can see straight away the Action 6 seems to be winning here. And I'm going to keep saying that today, but when I look at these back of these compressed screens, it's not going to be true to my large monitor at home. Just like now, the Nano looks more saturated than the Action 6 there. And while I'm still in this light / dark area, as it's just gone dark, once again, which one's performing the best? Now just behind the camera is a large shopping place, that's really light, so let's get there to compare differences again. And once again, as you can see, we've got that heavily shaded area, and now as I spin it round, which one's performing best in this heavily shaded area? And now I'll do the complete opposite, because just along the way there it's a really blown out area. So let me way over there and do the exact same test, camera facing forward, then spinning it round. Let's compare again, here we go. So now this is that heavily blown out area, and now I'm going to spin that camera around to me, and the sun's really behind me here. So which one's performing the best there? Which one looked the best with the cameras facing away? And now that sun's really strong behind my head. Which one's handling that dynamic range the best? And now in this shot, that sun's directly behind the camera lens. So which one's performing best with those shaded and blown out areas? Now I'm going to spin it round, do the same test, but with it facing me. I got a bit warm, I had to take my hat off. Although it is 5 degrees today, there's no wind whatsoever. And with that sun as strong as it is, it feels like summer, to be fair, it's boiling. So which one's looking the best now I've said that? We're going through some shaded and blown out areas at the same time with these trees. Which one's performing the best? I don't think I've said that yet. So just past this walkway, as you can see, that sun's strong. And as I go just over here, we've got that heavily shaded area. So you know what I'm going to do here. Let's compare this dark to light. See which one handles this dynamic range the best right now. As I slowly move to that really strong sun, and then back to the shade. Can we make out the detail in the wall there, or is it just complete shadow? Now we'll move back to the other wall. As soon as it goes into the dark, which one picks out more detail there as soon as we get into the shadow area? So like I said at the beginning of the video, I need you to keep an eye on the overall picture quality, the stability of the camera, especially that sway if there's any. And how has it been holding out up to now? Like I said, if it's in, it's in, I'm not correcting it. And then also the inbuilt audio quality on both cameras, which brings me to the next part. We're going to do an internal audio. We'll stand it a couple of meters away, and then a maximum of 5 meters away, as there's no wind today whatsoever, especially where I am. So let's really test out the onboard quality of the microphones. I've already tested the back of them as I'm walking at arm's length. So now let's test it in a few meters intervals, talking to the front of each camera. Let's see which one sounds the clearest. Here we go. So now I've got both cameras fixed to the tripod. It's not only going to be a great internal audio test talking to the front microphones, we've also got that bright sun just to the right, so it's a great dynamic range test as well. So now I'm approximately 2 meters away from the Action cameras, and first of all you're listening to the Action 6 onboard microphone. So what's the audio sound like on that one? And now you're listening to the DJI Osmo Nano's internal microphone, again talking to the front lens. So what's the audio quality sound like on the Nano compared to the 6 at 2 meters? Now I'm approximately 5 meters away from both cameras. So first of all, like before, I'm talking to the Action 6. So is that usable and clear at 5 meters? And now I've switched over to the Nano's internal audio at the front. Is that usable at 5 meters also? And now I'll start walking back, you're listening to the Nano. And now I'm just 2 meters away, I'll switch over to the Action 6. So which one sound the clearest there? And now I'm right close, I'd say about half a meter away, still talking to the 6. And now I've switched over to the Nano. So which one sounds the best there in those meters intervals? Now as you're probably aware, I keep repeating myself about that screen sway. And if you don't get to see it today, really drill into my playlist on my Action 4, 5 Pro, 6 and some of the Insta360 cameras, because let's just face it, they all do it. And I used to rectify it, like I said, crop in, straighten it out, but it's a lot of time and I shouldn't have to do that. So now I've got that fed up of doing it. When it does do it, I do leave it in, and you'll see on some clips, like let's just say for example a subject of a church, when I compared the 5 to the 6, the church on the 5 were leaning that way, and I'm not straightening it out, DJI, because it should be fixed by now. We've had plenty of updates, plenty of action cameras over the years, so it shouldn't be happening. And I know I'm not on my own there, and I do the very best every time I come out. Like I said, they're on the latest firmware, all action cameras, when I do these tests, and also they're calibrated on a level surface. So that screen sway, if you are seeing it, shouldn't be happening, and like I said, I'm leaving it in if it does that. Now we're going to cross the road and go down this alleyway. Once again, we're going into a heavily shaded area right now. And check out the stabilisation on both cameras once again. We're in standard rock steady on both also. Now just keep an eye on the shaded areas as well as that bright blue sky behind. Which one's picking out the details the most? And now I'm just going to make my way inside at Castle grounds mainly, as it's really bright today. Again, let's compare both action cameras in a different setting. Here we go. And as I walk through these gates to reveal the castle, once again, which one's going to handle that the best, especially when I get through this shaded area. It looks a little bit more darker on the Nano than the Action 6, but once again, we've got that larger inch sensor in the Action 6. And let's walk through this archway, revealing the castle at the other side. Keep a close eye to the detail, the brickwork, and the blown out sky at the back. And now I'm going to do a stabilisation test. I'm going to swiftly run up these stairs here, which go straight onto the wall walk behind me. So keep an eye on the stabilisation on both. Now it's rock steady standard, so it's just rock steady enabled on both. I'm going to swiftly move, like I said, up this wall. Keep an eye on the stabilisation here. How did each camera do on that stabilisation test? And now I'm just going to make my way through the castle to the front entrance. I'll record it the entire way through. So we're going to go in indoor now to compare the differences. Again, keep an eye on that screen rotation if it's doing it. Like I said, I'm going to keep it in if it does. So that was just a quick walk through the castle there. If you're interested in what you've just seen, I've done plenty of videos inside of here, really in every single room, to testing out lighting conditions with all my action cameras. Now back to that large panoramic sweep at the front of the castle. Is either screen behaving here? I've done this shot many times and I've compared action cameras, and this is where I think on the Action 5 Pro it will lean into the right. And as I'm doing this, I can't really see much lean on either camera, so I'm hoping it's vertical on both. So up to now, which action camera are you preferring, the Nano or the Action 6? Now I've not tested these two side by side yet. Like I said, I own many action cameras stretching from GoPro, DJI and Insta360, and I've compared most of them with the Nano and Action 6, but never these two together. So I'm excited to get back and see this in post to really see the differences, because I've only been looking at the front OLED screen on the 6 and then the two little screens at the back of each camera. It's been interesting because it's been that bright today I can hardly see without taking my shades off, but sometimes the 6 does beat the Nano, and then the Nano is beating the 6 in some other areas. So this is going to be a little bit more of a dark setting than what I've just been in.
You are now seated in the riding house of William Cavendish. Take a moment to reflect
Did not expect to see Shrek and Donkey in these riding stables today. Now just make my way back outside. So up to now you notice I've done no super night mode versus super night mode because on the Nano, after a few updates, it just doesn't work, as I'm just going to prove that right now on the latest firmware with the Action 6 and Nano. Now I'm going to go in the darkest place of the castle. I'm going to go in the darkest place of the castle. That's down in the kitchens. There's a little dark room in the corner. And I'll switch over to super night mode on the 6 versus the Nano, just to show you it's not really working. In fact, so much so that when I'm filming in normal filming mode, it's a lot brighter than in super night mode, which is a really strange one. Let's get down there and take a look. So now I'm in the basement where the kitchens used to be, in the darkest room in the castle. There's that little creepy door there. So I'm going to go inside now. In fact, I'll go inside as I'm recording. Just got that little window. So I'll split the screen right now just to show you the differences in normal filming mode. And now just to show you the differences, I'm back in normal filming mode. That's automatic mode 4K 30, standard devo, and the f-stop's down to 2.8 on both cameras. So now you're viewing the Action 6 with super night mode enabled. As you can see, it's a lot brighter. And now you're viewing the Nano's super night mode, so that's a lot darker, and it's in super night mode. I don't know what's going off there, DJI. But a few updates, yet it's still not like it should be, which is in the Action 5 Pro with the same size sensor there, the 1/1.3 sensor. So that's an interesting one, that down there, because it's the darkest setting, and as you've just seen, that super night mode does not work on the Nano. Now, I've had a few updates from DJI, and on the updates it did state there, we've updated and improved that super night mode, yet it stayed completely dark when you go in a low light setting. So now I've left the castle, and just outside the castle grounds we've got these water towers. Now if you follow my channel, I'm always doing videos around these, and these used to link up to the castle to supply them with fresh water. So I hope you've enjoyed this video today. Now that you've seen the differences to the Action 6 to the Nano, which one do you prefer there? So in some areas there the Nano wins, and then in some other areas the Action 6 wins. More so with the Action 6 on this bright blown out day is in the shaded areas, because in those shaded areas we've got that larger inch sensor, a 1/1 inch sensor compared with that 1/1.3 sensor in the Nano. There's a 40% increase there, so obviously in shaded and low light areas that Action 6 is going to win. And then when it's really bright like it is right now, it is difficult to see which one's the best, but at times it oversaturates on the Nano. And then we tested the onboard microphones on the Action 6 and the Nano, and because it's from the same company there, we're not comparing Insta360 versus DJI here. I know them DJI microphones on these action cameras are really usable. And then the stabilisation's been compared today on that split screen side by side, and that's been in Rocksteady standard, so that's Rocksteady standard stabilisation. We've had that 4K 30 automatic mode, that f-stop's at 2.8 on both cameras. It's not been fluctuating in automatic mode on the 6 because I really didn't want that, as it's not a fair comparison. So I think overall it has been a fair comparison today on this bright lit sunny day. So as always, do stay tuned to the channel, as there's going to be plenty more videos on the horizon, especially with testing out any latest updates from Insta360 or DJI across all the action cameras and drones there. But for now, thanks for watching, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and bye for now.